What's happening, Pod Squad? Welcome into another episode of the show. Joining with me today via the virtual tie-in is a fantastic dude. He is the general manager of Central Paving, and he's also the principal of BTG Services, which we going to talk about that. Yeah, he has like 15 years experience in the industry, estimating, heavy construction, civil, paving. Yeah, he's the GM of a pretty large paving operation. So, welcome into the show, Bryce Harem. How are you today?
Great, man. Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
It is my pleasure, legitimately, because you're fantastic to talk to. Like one of the most enjoyable people to talk to, and I'm not even joking.
See if we can change that.
Nope, we're not gonna. No, you're incredible insights into leadership, business as a whole. So I want to get into very quickly. I want to get into the BTG thing. But I mean, just give us the. I always say the 2 minute version. I want you to. I was thinking about this before we hit record. Actually, I feel like there's nowhere near enough people who know who you that know who you are yet, and I want to change that starting today. I need people to know who you are. So who is Bryce Harem?
Man, your average dude. um, obviously, I mean, little background on me. Grew up Washington State, born and raised. Kind of fell into construction late, honestly. Never, my dad was a civil engineer. My grandpa was a civil engineer. My great grandfather was a civil engineer. Um, I did not want to be a civil engineer. So here I am in civil construction, different. um, Ended up falling into it about in college, actually, and got a part-time job in the summer. Ended up going through school for construction management. I switched from fire science, EMT paramedic to construction management, um, and just actually fell in love with commercial. I've always been a framer. Always really enjoyed framing, still do. Fell in love with doing the commercial side of it. So went and did high rises, steel framing, drywall uh, for a specialty subcontractor working downtown Seattle, downtown Bellevue, heavy metropolitan areas, obviously. Um, Hated the hustle and bustle of the busy life on that side, even though that's where I grew up. Um, and wife and I moved to the east side, the desert, over on this side of the mountains, on the east side of the mountains, and kind of fell into custom residential, doing some custom timber frame homes, and then just happenstance looking for another job down the road. It wasn't really a great fit. Ended up stepping into civil construction and never really looked back. It was playing with large Tonka toys, man. It's it's a good time. It's just giant sandbox you get to play in and be around all day long. So it's been pretty good.
Excellent. That was like a perfect 2 minute summary, bro. I think one of the most unique things about you is um, your role at Central Paving, which is a massive company. Like it's well into 8 figures of revenue. Big company, lots of paving, lots happening. You are not the owner of the business, though, which directly goes into the work you do at BTG and the middleman mindset, which we're going to dive into. So, I don't. Where do I even start with that? Like, you've really. I'm going to start here. You've really embraced the. I'm not the business owner. I'm the middleman. What does that mean exactly? Explain that for people who have no idea what that means.
I struggled with not being the business owner for a long time. I honestly still do from time to time. A lot of my friends are owners of small construction outfits, small businesses. A lot of around here, that's generally you either work for somebody small or you start your own business in our kind of demographic. And I felt like I had to do it. That was, I mean, that's the top. And it it kind of came to a point. I think we talked about it was 2022. We've talked about it before. Um, when we had some struggles here at the company, and said I want to find a way to change the perception of the team. Um, the blue collar industry has the us versus them mentality. It's been around for generations. Um, and I want it to be us and them. And the more I kind of thought about that, it was, well, I could start my own business and do it, but why can't I just do it here? I get the same opportunity, less the risk.
Hmm.
Well, risk of, the true ownership of the company. Um, and as long as I guide the team in the right way, it's the same feeling. I still get to be a part of creating the atmosphere, creating the team, and honestly, I get a say in how we build the business. That was the part of why I joined Central Paving.
So you've adopted this. I just find it so interesting. Maybe I find it so interesting because I'm constantly surrounded by the business owners, right? Like, a couple of the network groups I'm in, they're all business owners. And you don't need to be a business owner to be successful or find a real purpose. And it sounds to me like what you just said, it sounds to me like you have really leaned into the team building aspect of it. And that spills over not just at Central Paving, but into the other work you do as well. Well, let's start with Central though. I'm going to change. I'm going to change my mind. We'll start with Central Paving. So we did talk a little bit about what the company was like in 2022. So how long have you been there? What was it like when you showed up, and what is it like now?
Oh man, I've been with the company since 2020, August of 2020. Um, I came out of 6 years of heavy civil, heavy utilities. And honestly, before I joined the company, all I knew was asphalt was black. I didn't care to know anything else about it. um, I was like, man, it can't be that difficult. Turns out there's a whole world when you get involved in here of the intricacies of what goes on for successful paving, maintenance, and all the above in this industry. Um, and a lot of guys, the fear is that you're going to get bored. When you come from a heavy civil background where, large scale jobs, multi-year jobs, I hear people say it all the time because I've tried to hire a few of them. I don't want to get bored. Man, you don't have time to get bored. um, they're the most complex parts of a job, a project, are the startup and shutdown of a job. Well, once you get a job started off on the right foot on a civil side, you've got 6 months, a year, a few months, 2 years, whatever it is, to kind of just manage until you have to deal with the closeout. Well, in paving, we're starting up and shutting down every day. It's a constant startup and shutdown. Um, so you're always busy. But when I came on in 2020, we were flying through the roof. We had grown. I believe Joel and Aaron Greer and Jeff Greer started this company in 2009 as a seal coat company. 2015, they started officially paving, and it just went through the roof. We grew 50% a year revenue and manpower wise through 2022. Um, so when I came on, they were in full steam. We're in the municipality work, not as heavy as we were in 21 and 22, but they had just kind of started getting a good foot in the municipality work, still doing residential, commercial work, everything like that, and traveling all over the state. And it was just a hustle and go mode as soon as I came on.
And now it's changed.
It is, we grew up until 2022. Um, got up to 100 employees, got up to about 26 million dollars in revenue. Like I said, we actually did very well in COVID. Our niche held very strong during that time frame. Um, but we came into 2022, let's call it confident, um, cocky. We hadn't hit a point of there's the edge. I've been in companies where we've found the edge before, so I knew it was possible. Um, And we found that edge. We found the edge, unfortunately, in 2022. And it was, we had grown so fast, but hadn't taken the time to put the infrastructure in place. We didn't have the right leadership set up, field and office. We didn't know exactly what jobs we wanted to go after. We were just kind of going after everything. We weren't scared to go after anything. We would go pave tracks, high school, college tracks, no fear. They had no idea that there was actually a concern with doing those. um, and after that year, we've talked about it before, we lost about $1.5 million that year. Very humbling year for all of us involved. Very tough year. We made the decision to downsize drastically, cut about 2/3 of revenue and staff, and started rebuilding from the ground up. Just started rebuilding, getting the right people in the right seats. We're still working on that today. We understand it's not a fast process, but we're not going to look to grow again until we feel we have become what I call sustainable. We have that infrastructure in place to successfully grow and expand. You don't necessarily get to, for every level, you keep growing higher and higher. It takes a whole nother level of communication, a whole nother level of effective communication to be able to continue moving forward. It's not just a linear graph of, oh, we keep talking. Hey, we talk a little bit more as we get bigger. We talk a little bit more because the risk and everything just grows so much with it.
Mm. I think I think what impresses me is so much about what you've done there in such a short time is like I have this preconceived idea that if you walk into a company and so for you 2020 grow mode like crazy and like you say company floats up to 25 million like as somebody who's not the business owner that's got to like kind of shape how you perceive the business how it should run or what you think it should be doing or I guess what I'm saying is it just gets to a point and then to make such a drastic switch in approach and cut revenue, cut equipment. Like, I can't in my brain reconcile a lot of GMs sticking around for that process because it's not what you signed up for when you started. When you started in 2020, company was like growing through COVID like crazy. So you were so invested into this company. It's amazing. So I guess my question is why? Why? Because so many like managers so many managers would come into that and see this drastic change and then go, dude, I didn't sign up for this. Like the company lost $1 million. Like I'm out.
You know, first I'll add that it's 100% not all my doing. I mean, this has taken a full team of everybody here who has just gone to the limit of trying to support each other as a team. So that's first and foremost. I call my role. I have a small role. It's fun, but the honestly, this is exactly what I signed up for. I like nothing. I have never wanted to be a part of a. I know we're a decent sized company, but we're not corporate. I've never wanted to be a part of a corporate company. I've wanted to, when I left my last position, it was because I felt I didn't have a say in the growth. I didn't really have a say. I was just along for the ride. I want to be a part of building something that lasts. I want to be a part, whether my kids want to work here or the next generation, whatever comes through the line, I want to be able to say that I got to help create that with a team of people. That is the hard part. I don't think I realized how hard it was going to be. Um, there are days I don't want to do it. um, but honestly, I remind myself this is exactly what I signed up for. Whether we're 100 people or 30 people, I get to help build a company. And it doesn't, I'll do that with 5 people here. I enjoy it.
So is that what the middleman is? What is the middleman in the middleman mindset?
The middleman is obviously I've been an estimator, I've been a project manager, construction manager. I've spent a little bit time in the field, but honestly, not nearly as much as most people think. Um, and now a general manager. And when I was trying to think of how to effectively help the team, I was struggling because I felt like I was caught in the middle. I was trying to understand what the owners wanted or the customer wanted and relay that effectively to help the team see where to go, the direction we needed to go, and why we did things. And the more I did it, the more it became a truth to me of, well, you can try to get to the other side. BTG stands for Bridge the Gap. BTG services. Everybody always says they want to get to the other side of the bridge. That's the grass is greener approach. You know, well, the value isn't really on either side of the bridge. The more I broke it down, it's being the bridge itself. It's no different than leadership. Bringing somebody, you can tell somebody what to do, you can teach them, or you can lead them to where they're actually better than you. That's the bridge. I'm helping people get to the other side. That to me is the true value, not necessarily running the company. And you can do that. The best spot is in the middle.
It also seems like the hardest spot. So I guess, I don't know. I'm probably just drawing from my personal experience. I was an employee. I was very young, mind you, in my early 20s, but I was an employee at a company where I wanted to do more. And this rate of speed at which I was being allowed to do more wasn't to my liking. So I left and I started my own. I can't imagine that's an easy place sometimes. I guess what I'm saying is in this company, I really appreciate how open you are about how things are going, and like that's going to be awesome for people listening. So in this company, what does the bridge look like right now? Because there's still a lot of people. It's not 100 anymore. Thank goodness for you. It's 30, which is still a lot of people though. So what does that bridge look like now between the 30 and the ownership?
Well, I would say which bridge. Um, it all depends on, you know, I was looking it up the other day, and it's actually I'll be talking about a little bit as we go into when I speak at Pavex later on this next winter. Um, the blue collar industry, you know, makes up, I think it was 14% roughly in there, a decent percentage of the workforce. Um, and construction is an extremely, you're probably going to fact check me and I'm going to be wrong here. So, um, but construction in general is comprised of over 7 million people currently in the United States. Well, every person has a different perception. Assuming everybody only has one, that's over 7 million gaps that you can bridge on a daily basis. Because that's all bridging a gap is. It is managing perceptions, understanding somebody's perception, seeing the way they see it, and relating it to the way the other person sees it or the way you see it yourself, and finding that common ground that actually brings it relatable to everybody.
All right, follow up question for you. So most of the people that are listening to this show, the Humble Pod Squad, most of them are going to be business owners. Most of them are going to be smaller companies, like 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever the size, right? They're growing, and they don't have a Bryce. They don't have somebody who's bridging the gap. They're the owners, and you get locked. I'm guilty of this. You get locked in your owner world, and you think everyone thinks the way you do, and it turns out people don't. People don't value, you say, perception. People have different perceptions of things. Like, if you could give advice, and I'm sure this is probably what you're going to be speaking about at Pavex. Like, where does a person start, whether they are the business owner or not, to like really bridge the gap between getting the ownership and the team on the same page? Because I know that's what you're very passionate about, and even in our off-air conversations, that's what we've talked about. Like, where do you start?
It's I struggled with this for a while of if when I started BTG services, do I only want to be able to talk and help, call them middle managers, frontline managers, leaders? That would be your foreman, your superintendent, your project managers, um, and saying, well, maybe that's what middleman mindset is. But the more I break it down to myself, middleman mindset is is just that. It's a mindset. It's not a position. And owners can be the middleman as well. One, you can throw yourself in the middle of any situation, especially if you are a small scale or owner operator and you're just getting started with a couple employees. You have almost no choice but to throw yourself in that middle seat. But for ownership, there's your personal life and work. That's a middleman position. There's also the customer as a small scale owner operator or just getting started, small company. You've worked hard to build relationships with people. And the last thing you want to do is feel like your employees or crew is damaging that relationship by the way they act. Um, so you're bridging the relationship between the customer and the relation that you build and how your team that you have hired and built see the importance of that. That's a bridge as well. Um, but I think you start. I actually, my first question I asked myself is, where do you start? What do you need to know? And this is me writing it down to myself. What do you need to know if you're going to try to do this? And the only question I have is, or the only answer, excuse me, I had is people. I need to understand people and the fact that nobody is the same. There is no step by step process to the middleman mindset. There is no step by step process to leadership because you're not dealing with systems and figures and assets and numbers. You're dealing with people and emotions. So the first thing we have to get through our head is nobody's going to think like me. And I have to be okay with that.
Sorry, I'm laughing because it's like I'm talking to my operations manager. It's crazy. He told me that. He's like, dude, he's 58. He has a lot of work experience, and he's like, I used to think of everyone as assets or liabilities. He's like, mentally, right? He worked in big corporations. Mentally, you're on one side of the sheet or the other, right? And that's what he says too. Like, there is no step by step process. There's no playbook. So I was going to ask you, like, I might just rephrase it gently now, a little bit. I was going to ask you, like, how do you do it? Like, yes, I know there's no like step one, then two, then three to four to access, people and understand people. But, here's what I perceive. I perceive a lot of businesses, especially in pavement. The business owner or the someone in that frontline position struggles, man, to really understand the perspective of other people, and they get locked in their way of thinking only. So is there do you have a tool bag of resources or things or strategies that you use to help understand the people better so that you can drive the team forward?
This has been part of putting this presentation together for Payvex has honestly forced me to try to comprise it all.
Dude, you get 60 minutes to convince people.
I know, and I should have taken the 90 minutes uh, to put all of this into words. How do I break it down that is effective? And it's not necessarily, again, there is no step by step process, but there's strategies. You know, um, for instance, one of the things you'll hear me say very often, you and I have talked about it, is I ask why a lot. we don't ask enough questions in general. One, out of fear. You could say an employee, he or she is terrified to ask why to the owner because they don't want to look stupid to the owner. When in reality, you're going to look far dumber if you don't know what you're doing, or if you don't know the expectation or understand why you're doing it. And now you have to try to get somebody else on board. Um, why is probably the most underrated question, just in simplicity form, that I've come to realize as I've kind of grown through this process. I ask myself why. I ask the team why. I ask why are people asking why. I have a why journal that whenever I get stuck in a situation or I don't agree with something or wonder why the process happened, I write it down and I write why. And I give myself a day or two and I come back and try to analyze why. Um, Go ahead.
Well, I mean, don't go into. You wouldn't do this anyways. Don't go into specifics. But is there like, has there been an example? Maybe it's at a different company. Has there been an example where asking the right questions or really getting to the root of something with a team member, with an employee, maybe they're, maybe they're saying crazy stuff. Maybe they're not, maybe they're refusing to do things a certain way, follow a policy, whatever it is. Has there ever been a moment or an example that stands out to you where the power of really getting to the root of why someone is doing something um, uh, solved an issue?
This one's tough because it doesn't really come across. It is a solution, but it's not one I really enjoyed. I had to, we've talked about it. I had to let go of one of our high ranking foremen earlier this year. Um, and it came down to why. I I sat with him numerous times and I asked him simply at the end of it, why are you here? Why do you, if you are frustrated, if you don't like the way things are going, why are you here? He goes, that's a good question. I don't know. And it was just it was a light bulb moment of, if I can't tell you why you're here and I have a hard time seeing it and you don't know why you're here, we are damaging this team by simply just trying to make this work. And I truly love the guy. I really like him as a person, but he had lost his ability to see the opportunity he had to create a team because he was caught up in frustrations, which he's allowed to have. Everybody has those. Um, but he had lost his ability to see why he was there.
Was he was he talented? Like, was he a skilled guy, good at his job?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Very skilled. That's why it hurts so bad. You tend to hold on to those ones longer than you should.
Well, yeah, I was literally just TikTok's my guilty pleasure. Okay, don't judge me. Right, I'm off the Instagram. I don't. TikTok's my thing, and this video from Bryce Harem pops up, and it's like recent too. And you were talking about all stars teams versus championship teams, and just the way you were saying it, even in the video, it's crazy that I just popped my brain. But yeah, just the way you were saying it in the video, it sounded like you you knew what you were talking about. Like, what's the difference between an all-star team and a championship team, Bryce?
Well, an all-star team is comprised of talent, basically, where any one person can do all the tasks needed. Any one person can be the star. They can go do it all and get it done. But a championship team is a team that each member has a specific role and they work so well together that you don't know who is necessarily the most talented. They're each talented in their own role and they each need each other, but together they win the championship. The all-star team, they might win the team, they might win the game, but to win the season and win the championship, that's the team that has the specific roles and they learn how to work with each other. They know the strengths and weaknesses and they build off each other.
I've got this theory, and I want your opinion on it. I've got this theory. It's oh well, you'll understand it right away because we're both Simon Sinek people, right? So I'm gonna put you on the spot. Do you know who the mortal enemy of Simon Sinek is?
I don't.
Jack Welch. Jack Welch. So if anyone listening doesn't know who Jack Welch is, go look up Jack Welch. So he was the CEO of General Electric. He was the guy literally responsible for blowing up that company from $13 billion to I think $700 billion or whatever crazy amount. Just crazy. And his philosophy was, very much results oriented, all stars basically. So in his company, in GE back in the day, the bottom 10% were always fired, regardless of anything. Like if you were in the bottom 10%, Jack Welch had an asset and liability list, right? So you're a liability, you're out. And every year they'd cycle out the bottom 10% of the least performing managers. And from a shareholder perspective, from a valuation standpoint, from a financial perspective, it worked. Jack Welch made, I think when he left, he got the biggest payout ever for a retiring CEO. It was an astronomical amount of money. But it doesn't work long term because you see what GE is now. It fell apart. It's not bankrupt, but definitely fell apart. So my theory is very much aligned with what Simon Sinek believes, and I believe you to be the same. Applying it to small business though, and a lot of the people that you're going to be talking to at Pavex, smaller companies in paving, I perceive that we're slowly getting closer to we're bridging the gap better, right? So, what advice would you give? And I'm sure you're going to talk about this at Pavex, but if you're a small business owner, you're trying to grow, but it's a struggle financially, maybe the results aren't there yet, and you said something like you feel compelled sometimes to keep those high performing all-star type players, even though deep down you know that they're not going to produce for a championship team in the long run. How do you break out of that mold, man? What does that look like for you? Because you've kind of gone through it.
Very specifically, you in the uh, in the Simon method, you have to know your why. You have to know first of all why you're here, why you have the company. What's the purpose of what you're doing? If it's just to put a good product down and do a good job, well, sure, then talent's going to overpower that. Uh, but if it's to truly create better people, provide opportunities that creates opportunities for people to become truly better human beings, then I'm not looking for the talent. I'm looking for the character. I'm looking for the guy who wants to grow. I'm looking for the guy. We made the mistake in 2022 of pretty much hiring strictly talent. We had the most talent on the team we've ever had. We were an all-star team at that point. But it didn't, you have so many different egos. The more talent you have, the bigger the ego. And I think where people fall short is it takes time to build, to build skill, to build experience. That takes an investment. If you're an owner operator, you're like, oh, I don't necessarily have that time and have that investment. But ask yourself, what do you want in 5 years? Because you can either hire the same people over and over and over again every year, more talent that aren't going to be satisfied because you're going to try to change the way they're doing things. Or you can bring somebody in who has the personality you want. Heck, we can teach people how to stripe. We can teach people how to seal coat. We can teach people how to pave. We can teach people skills. But I argue that you can't teach character. You can get people to change their viewpoint, but character is something you're born with. And that's the one that I normally would look for first. If that was me looking to hire people, my interview questions aren't based on your experience. I can see that in a resume. We talk. I like to always say I ask off the wall, questions just to try to understand how somebody's brain works.
Give me your favorite one. I gotta know. I love interviewing.
Uh my my favorite one is if you could speak to anyone in the world They can be dead or alive. Who would it be, and what would you talk about?
Hmm.
And I've never gotten the same answer twice. I've had some that are, it's I just speak to LeBron James or, whatever that is. But every now and then you see somebody go back. I can tell you, I've probably had close to half the people when I ask that question have teared up or cried because they think about somebody, and based on what they talk about, if it's family, if it's a long lost relative, oftentimes, sometimes it's, hey, my dad or mother ran out on me and I wish I could understand why. It helps me see what their driver is. If, I wish I could talk to my dad. He always guided me through. Okay, well, then you're the type of person who family, one, is important. You have a strong hold of family, and you want that feeling of being guided and to help guide people in, if that's kind of your nature. So you can start to see the way people operate and think and what might be their drivers as they move forward.
Mm. That's an awesome, awesome interview question and explanation. I love those. I love the off the wall interview questions. Another time, I'll tell you some of my favorite I've picked up from others along the way. Um,
I do
yeah,
want to add real quick, though, if you don't mind. I just
please.
want to say
Yeah.
we do. We were talking about the all-star team and the championship team, and I just wanted to touch on that real quick before we moved on.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people, you hear it in interview questions, people, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Um, and it's a very generic question. It happens all the time. I think there's a way you can truly spin those questions to actually have very healthy conversations. But almost everybody is taught to ignore the weakness or spin it into something good. You know, I tend to take on too much. This is what I always used to say. I take on too much, which tends to be, oftentimes I just kind of overburden myself because I want everybody just to, I'm going to take it and run with it.
You're saying with like a puffed out chest, like yeah,
Yeah, peacocking all over the place.
yeah.
Uh, when in reality, now I would rather start with my weaknesses than my strengths. I can tell you every one of my weaknesses first, and I can tell you what I'm doing to work on them. And I can tell you there are more weaknesses than there are strengths. And I think that is healthy. And when it comes to championship team, I need my team. It's I wouldn't be able to do what I do without them. I can sell, but I can't sell nearly as good as, Billy Harrell. Billy Harrell is a natural born salesman. He is our lead account manager, sales manager, and he absolutely kicks butt when he's out there. And at the same time, I never worked in the field. I didn't grow up in the field. You would call me a briefcase contractor. I got made fun of for that when I came out of college. You know,
Clean boots.
24, yeah, 24 years old, coming out with your shiny vest, shiny hard hat, you know, brand new tool bag, whatever it is. And I used to hide that. I used to be very insecure about the fact that I don't know. Well, now I embrace it. I don't know. And I'm okay with not knowing. I love nothing more than going out in the field. And I don't care if it's the raker who's been there 1 month. Teach me something. Show me something today. Show me how you rake this edge and why you rake the edge. And I enjoy learning. Um, so I would say that the most important part about building a championship team is not knowing your strengths, but knowing the strengths of the others and how they make up for your weaknesses.
That's good stuff, man. So part of my theory is that we're slowly, in a good way, we're trending the right direction. I feel like, especially up and coming business owners, if you're a millennial, if you're a Gen Zer and you want to start a business, you probably have, at the very least, you've been exposed to this thinking and this methodology of people first and not just hiring talented people and actually trying to build the character. So you said character. You said we hire for character, and when it comes to the actual how you view your team at the company. I view the culture as the collection of the characters, right? So you take the sum of each individual person, which, as you stated, is you have, in construction alone, millions of different people. So you have 7 million different ways of looking at things. Your culture is just the collection of those characters. And I think some people listening to this, in fact, well, I know one person in particular who's going through this right now. So they've grown a company. They have high performing people. They've got the A players. They got from a skills perspective, they got the studs. But deep down they know, Bryce, they know that they're not going to have the championship team. What's the litmus test? How do you know? Because culture and character is just this funny thing. It's this thing that you don't just make a culture. Like it's difficult. So how do you know if you've got the right people or person? If you're struggling with one person in particular, what's the litmus test for you to know if they're checking the box or not?
Oof, man. Um, I I don't know if you always know. Sometimes it takes longer than others. I I have hired more people that I probably shouldn't have hired. Some people interview very well.
Hmm.
Um, Other people, I come to find out, I wish I had hired them because they interview very poorly. And it turns out they had every quality I wanted. I just run into them later on, casually talking. Um, I think I think the more time that we can spend in the middle, I call it spending time on both sides of the bridge. Um, you know, for the better part of 4 years, I have spent my time in front of a computer screen right where I'm at right now. It's just what my role requires. That being said, this last year, I've spent more time in the last 4 years than I have out in the field. And I'm seeing things, truly seeing things that I thought I was seeing, but I wasn't seeing. So the more time we can actually spend outside of our element, and in others' elements, you start to see the way they truly act. You start to see their true character. Because a lot of people, if they come talk to the boss or whatever, they come talk to me, I don't see somebody's true nature in my office. It's out of their element.
Hmm.
So I bring myself to their element where you can start to see their true nature.
Yeah. So true. You invite someone into a sit down meeting in your office. Yeah, that's home court advantage, man. From an employee's perspective, they're like, yeah, I'm in your house, right? I get it. I get it. I'm just fascinated. I'm fascinated by you, Bryce. Um, I want to come spend time, honestly, at Central Paving. I want to see what it's like. I mean, our company, and we talked about this before, like, so my company kind of went through a pretty brutal process this spring. It wasn't from a downsizing perspective. We did say goodbye to people, but just the way we did things, specifically from an accountability standpoint and in following processes correctly, we made a lot of exceptions in previous years because I don't know, because I'm a nice person and I have a difficult time, Bryce. I have a hard time, right? Just bringing in that accountability aspect. And so it was very difficult to slowly bring the team along with that. Um, specifically at Central Paving, it's a lot of work. I can only imagine the work you have. Like, yes, it was 100 people. Now it's only 30, but that doesn't mean the workload has changed. In fact, if anything, that process of downsizing is probably brutal. I mean, what was it like?
Um, 2022, and I know you and I have talked about this. 23 and 24 have been better years financially, but have been tougher than 2022 was when we were 100 people for me. And that is strictly because of the way I chose to get involved. Um, in 2022, I was a robot, I was a manager. I managed assets, liabilities, um, everybody I had was, it was a budget, piece of paper, spreadsheet, and I could tell people where to go. I didn't get involved, you call it emotionally. I was always taught that as a boss, now I can see I was taught wrong, that as a leader, uh, you're not supposed to have emotions. You're supposed to be strong and show no weakness, show no emotion. Well, turns out, I don't care who you are, everybody has emotions. Everybody's emotional. It's just, do you choose to react based on your emotions or not? So in 2023 and 2024, I chose to fix, attempt to fix, not only for the sake of the company, but for the sake of myself. That's where the middleman mindset was born, was in between 2022 and 2023. And when you choose to get involved, I don't think many people realize the can of worms you are opening, because once you choose to open that can, there's no closing it back up, unless you want to walk away, which mentally I don't want to walk away because something is hard. I want to walk away feeling I've either achieved what I want to achieve, or life path changes, and you move on healthily from there. But I don't ever want to leave because something felt too hard to do.
Yeah, makes sense. Um, I really could talk to you forever. I have one other thing to ask before I ask you to start plugging all of the stuff that you do and telling people to go to Pavex and go go listen to you. I will be there. I will be at your session. The thing I wanted to ask you was, if you are a middle manager, if you are a business owner, it doesn't really matter, right? But if you're in that position of, yeah, you're responsible for managing and leading people, and deep down you know that you need to, you said, open the can of worms. I think that's a good way of saying it. I think a lot of business owners, I mean, truthfully, I think there's some that we're connected with that know that they need to be more, um, you could call it accessible, you could call it people facing, call it whatever you want, but they need to build that environment and that culture where they are more involved with the people. They're not just managing. What's your recommendation for resources if somebody wants to go down that path and figure out, like, I've got to actually be a leader to these people? What advice would you give them?
Call me. I'd love to talk. No.
That was the best one. That's the best answer, bro. Yeah.
um, it's called, I call it middleman mindset for a reason, because mindset is the key portion. Like I said, you open this can of worms. If you truly open it and decide to open it, it's going to take a mindset shift. You're going to need to strengthen your mind, because, like you said, there are days that are going to be very difficult. There are going to be days you don't want to do it. Um, I'm a high, I can't even think of the word right now. I would say, I'm a big proponent of daily habits, and I do those on a daily basis to do just that. Um, Strengthen my mindset. Um, so I would, one, for me, reading. Reading is probably the biggest one that I pull from. Networking. I'm a member, obviously, Cam, with you in the Blacktop Banner Success Group. I'm not a business owner, but I pull a lot of knowledge from that just in hearing what other business owners are going through. Because for me to be effective in my role, I may never truly know what it's like to be an owner, but it doesn't mean that I can't think like one or attempt to think like one, so that I can anticipate what they may want. And to me, that's the whole goal of being able to lead, not only lead your bosses per se, for me to lead my owners and lead my team. I have to be able to anticipate what they may want so that I can bridge that gap effectively. Um, but reading is a major, habit that I am embarrassed to say I didn't do for far too long.
It's hard.
I used to almost take pride in the fact that I didn't read.
Why?
It was just I don't know. I
I'm
don't
not
read.
laughing because I'm like you're a fool. I'm just laughing. I've never heard anyone say I don't read.
I I was I was the guy. I'll wait till the movie comes out. I don't need to,
Yes.
um, and everyone I had been around, younger, kind of coming into my career, they didn't read. Nobody did that, honestly, until I came to Central Paving and Aaron Greer, the younger brother, is his major thing was, man, I will pay you to read. If you come in here in the morning and you read for half an hour before you start your day, I will gladly pay you for that. And so I'm thankful that now, I do that quite a bit. Audiobooks are more my thing. It tends to be easier to do during the process. Um, Journaling, I do a lot of journaling. I have a daily gratitude journal that I write in. Then I also have my why journal. Um, we talked about the networking, fitness, all that for the mindset aspect of everything. It's where that is my therapy. That's how I clear my head. And be around people who are going to challenge you. That's It's really easy to get comfortable or be that's the saying, big fish in a small pond. You know, well, find a new pond. Um, and you get over to the bigger ponds or a lake, and guess what? You're now the small fish. Um, I The ego takes the hardest pill in that one. Usually, that's usually the hardest one to swallow, just because it feels good to have the answers. Um, and I may still have some for other people or offer a different perspective that owners don't see, but I try to carefully pick who I surround myself with.
That's all solid advice. All right. It's almost been an hour. Typically these go like 30 to 45. I would go another hour with you. I just love talking to you, man. But instead, for the last minute, I want you to plug the absolute crap out of everything you do. Plug everything. Where do people find you? I know you're on social a little bit. Where do they know? Where do they find out more about BTG? 60 seconds. Take your time.
Man, well, I'm an office laborer. Um, you know, uh, um, you know, first and foremost, my whole thing is I'm the general manager of Central Paving. Um, I would be nothing without this team. It is really my avenue for everything I'm doing right now. I started BTG Services because one, I enjoy coaching. I truly enjoy coaching, and that's my passion. That's what I want to do with my career. And luckily, Joel and Aaron Greer they're well aware of that situation. It may be years down the road before something like that really takes off, but it is something that I'm very passionate about because I enjoy watching people come to realize their own value. Um, but LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Um, I do have a YouTube channel, Middleman Mindset. I'm also on TikTok. Cam, you can go ahead and if you don't got me on there. Um, I do try to post daily, except for my new most recent habit is Sundays. I shut all social media off. I don't go on social media on Sundays. Um, I don't even work out on Sundays. That is my live in the moment day. That's my family day. I try to prioritize being around, whether we're doing chores around the ranch or doing something, that's my priority day. Um, but when it comes to BTG services, I want to help one, owners see the kind of people they can hire, that they can look for, that it is possible. Um, I want to help frontline managers specifically. That's your foreman, that's your superintendents, your project managers, your estimators. See that you may have a goal of being the top dog, but that doesn't mean you can't start right now. The value of leadership, if you truly want to show the owner your value, we'll start bridging the gap now. And that's all based on the understanding of being willing to understand and see a different perspective. Um, so I'm working through doing a couple. I'd like to do a foundation. I think it's going to be kind of like a Zoom group foundation for daily habits, building daily habits. It'll be a 4 to 6 month course, helping people get started with that, get your foot in the door on how to effectively start um, habits that increase your mindset or help your mindset. As well as eventually, I'd like to get into some one-on-one coaching, some group team alignment, frontline leadership development, uh, and just see where that goes. But I am speaking at the Ignite Summit in December. I'll be down there speaking about empowering the 80%. The 80%, that's the 80% of the workforce in construction and blue collar that's not in front of a computer. And then, like we talked about, I'll be down at Pavex to really share my theory on the middleman mindset and see if I can't spread a little bit. One of the biggest takeaways from all of this, and I continue to push, is we can go as far as we want to with technology, but until technology takes over everything, we're still going to have people, which means you're still going to need somebody to bridge the gap. That's why the value is there. You are still going to need that one person who's willing to put themselves in the middle to help understand, to effectively communicate, and to guide people across the bridge.
Boom. I'm excited. I will be there at the Payvex. I will not be at Ignite, but I will be there at Payvex. You are speaking at 11 a.m. on day 2. I don't know if you even knew that, but you are. Wednesday.
I think, yeah, Thursday. Is it Wednesday?
Surprise. Is it Thursday? Oh, I had the day wrong. All right.
I don't know. Who knows? We'll be fine.
Go to the payvexshow.com. Go find Bryce. He's on there. You'll find out sure enough when you're there. Yeah. Very grateful for the time you spent here today. Man, keep it up. I'm just so psyched and honored to know you, man, and I can't wait to meet you in the flesh there in January. It's gonna be awesome.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Thank you for supporting the show. Keep your stripes hot. Talk to you next week.